Hello, everyone, and welcome to a bonus segment of the Brothers Take. I'm Chris, and today I'm going to be giving you my take on Resident Evil Village. So, I've been streaming the demos to this game initially and giving kind of initial thoughts on what I was thinking of the game in the earlier portions of it. And then I never got around to talking about how I felt when I finished the game. So, I wanted to take this as an opportunity to do that. But just so you know, this will be a non spoiler review. The reason for that is because I want to save spoilers for when we eventually do a spoiler cast on our podcast. I want to wait and see what the guys think about some of the finer details in the story and all that kind of stuff. So I want to wait till then to actually talk about spoilers, but this is going to be just a non-spoiler take on the actual game. And to be honest, this is not going to be the first review that you've checked out on Ori Village. Like, there's no way. You've obviously checked out people before, so this is just another take. Maybe you just want to see what someone else thinks of the game, having played it. There is going to be a portion of this review which could be considered spoilery. I will give a fair warning before I get there and explain how that works. So if you have been on the fence about playing this game, you've been checking out different people's opinions on it to see if it's for you, you are safe. But I will explain at a certain point in the review something that I want to do, which might be considered spoilery, but really only if like people will only really understand if they've played the game. Okay. So the question is this game any good? That's really what I can talk about in a non-spoiler way without getting into the specifics of the story or anything, right? The story I'm going to talk about very vaguely, very loosely. But is this game any good? And I can say yes, this game is great, really great. This is easily my favorite Resident Evil game since Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 was previously my favorite Resident Evil game, as I'm sure it is for many, many people. Um, but I actually, and I know a lot of people love the Resident Evil 2 remake. I thought that was great too. It was a close second for me, but I prefer this game, and I prefer this game to Resident Evil 7. Um, doesn't mean objectively that it's a better game. You might prefer Ori 7. You might prefer the pace of it. You might prefer the kind of constant feeling of dread and stuff. That's not to say that there's no feeling of dread in this game. I did find this game quite scary, very scary sometimes, really scary sometimes. There's a certain set piece that I won't explain. If you've played the game, you know about it, or if you watch streamers play, you know about it. But it's easily the scariest thing Resident Evil has ever done. But it's not that all the time. And there are parts of the game that really aren't that scary, and gives you a chance to enjoy some of the action mechanics of the game too. So it kind of embraces everything that you expect from Resident Evil, I think, um, in terms of exploration, puzzle solving, survival horror, management resources, or resource management, I should say, and also some combat, some action. There's boss fights, there's different enemies, there's a lot more enemies and a lot more enemy variation than there was to Ori 7. But it hasn't abandoned Ori 7's DNA. This is a direct sequel, and I'm sure you all probably have heard that by now. But you are playing as Ethan. You're picking up, a few years after the events of the Baker Mansion in Louisiana, and I don't know if like Resident Evil has ever done a direct sequel. Like obviously Ori 2 did reference some of the things that had happened in Ori 1, and you could go into the STARS office and stuff. Same with like Ori 5 would reference the kind of the events of Ori 4, but it wasn't a direct follow up with the same character or direct sequel. Ori 3 obviously is in Raccoon City, and there's a bit of crossover, but it's more of like it's like a spin off to Ori 2 nearly. This is actually a direct sequel. I don't know if they've ever done that before. And you know the drill at this point. There's something strange going on with Chris, and your family has been let's just say your family life has been torn apart, and you're trying to get it back, and you wake up in this creepy village, and we take it from there. And we've got lots of strange creatures that are familiar in our own folklore, but are new to Resident Evil. And it's a really cool scene. And I have to say, I really, really enjoyed the enemies in this game. Not all of them, right? But there's enough there to really like. And I think the werewolves I think or the lichens as they're called in this game. I think they did an incredible job on them. I think they move really well. They're very fast, they're intense, they hunt like a pack, they're clever. Really, really great, really intense. So I really, really enjoyed the enemy designs. And speaking of designs, this game in general, it looks beautiful. Really, really looks good. It's at its strongest in interiors, to tell the truth. And when it's really dark, they do a really, really good job on the lighting in this game. Like, it looks phenomenal. Is it scary? I was saying before, there are some really, really scary segments. I'm not the biggest like, I like horror, but I'm not the biggest like, or the bravest person when it comes to horror games or horror movies even. So for me it was particularly scary at points, but again, not all the time. I did find there was more of a push to play this game than I had with 7. With 7 there was more of a sense of dread throughout for me. But there are points in this game that go beyond the fear of 7, but it's not all the time. So you have time to relax, and you've time, and you kind of know, it kind of indicates to you at points when it's like, oh, this is just a puzzle, so I can just do a puzzle right now. I can relax, and I don't have to think about, am I going to get jump scared right now? But then there's other points where there's constant tension and atmosphere, and you kind of know that this is, okay, something is about to happen. And I must say, they've nailed the atmosphere in this game. It's atmospherically beautiful, dreadful, and intense. Like, they really nailed the atmosphere and the music. I thought the music was a particular standout in this game. Um, Not that it's like there's these melodies coming at you all the time while you're trying to, like, it works in with the sound design and stuff, and it's just kind of eerie and stuff. But there's a particular piece of music, and I won't give away what it is. Um, but not only is it really good music on its own, I've actually listened to it like outside of playing the game now. Not only is it really good music on its own, but when it's used, it is used so well. And it's a sequence that, again, I won't give away what it is, but a lot of other people, some people hate it. I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was a rewarding sequence. I thought it was really, really strong. It was well placed, and the use of the music was unbelievable. It was a highlight in the game for me. But there's a few moments that are just absolute standout moments. Really, really good. And I thought, and the gameplay, it plays well. It plays well. It plays like, the gunplay is better than it was in 7 because there's more of it, and they knew you had to do more of it, so they've kind of worked and catered towards that. So it's really fun to play. And I will say as well, there's a lot of replay value in this game. So when you finish the game, you get something called collection points, and you can spend them on miniatures, figures, the mercenaries mode, which is like an arcade mode if you want something else to play. You can also look at kind of behind the scenes footage and stuff that they have in here. They have concept art, and then they have like unlockables in terms of weapons. I won't give away what they are, but there's weapons you can unlock that have different things that you can then use in subsequent playthroughs. You can go through the different harder difficulties, and then they have these challenges within the game that you can try to pull off as well as your trophies and achievements. So there's a lot of replay value. There's a lot of exploration. The village itself is really, really interesting map. And apart from the main areas that you have to go to, they have also these kind of segue parts that you can go to too. So it's just, I found it a more engaging game than 7 was, as well as having a really engaging story and experience, which 7 had. 7 had a really good story and experience, but this has more, and it feels more like a game too. It's really gamey, as well as being kind of real serious and dark. And I think they just balanced it all really, really, really well. I will say that I felt that the ending rushes a little bit. And I do wonder if that has something to do with COVID. If you've played it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I do feel like it kind of rushes towards the end. A lot happens really quickly, and it kind of brushes past a couple of things. But ultimately, overall, really enjoyed this game. I had a pacing issue at one point. There's a couple of things I wish they swapped around, but I'm kind of nitpicking, to be honest. Every sequence I, for the most part, enjoyed, and I jumped straight back in. But it is stressful at times if you're someone like me who's not, the biggest horror game player. I did take my time as well working through some of the sequences. So, but my initial playthrough on casual, because I was taking it easy, was just over 10 hours. And that was not exploring everything. So there's more you can get out of it too, as well as, like, you can do the hunting feature and stuff. If you want to upgrade your character further by going to the Duke. The Duke is this game's merchant. And he's an interesting character. I thought he was just going to be a game mechanic, but actually there's a little bit more to him than that. But I'll let you discover that for yourself if you've been on the fence about playing this game and you're just wanting to get someone else's thoughts on it to see, do you want to play it? I do recommend this game. I do recommend it. But again, it does depend on, like, you'd want to like horror a little bit. It's not as accessible as, say, like, some people have described this game as particularly action-packed and not scary. It's not like Resident Evil 6, if, say, you were someone of that period. It's not like that. It's definitely scarier than that, and it's definitely a horror survival game, but it's also got more fun than 7 did. So that's kind of how I'm describing it and looking at it. But yeah, I would absolutely recommend this to anyone who's into horror games and to anyone who's into Resident Evil games. 100%. I 100% recommend this game. I thought it was great. I don't even know. It's definitely my favorite since 4. And then after that, I'm going to want to play it a few more times and rack it up against 4, honestly. I thought it was just really, really, really strong game. And I really, really enjoyed it. Now, the next part of this review could be considered spoilery, but I'll explain how it works and then you can decide for yourself, right? I'm not actually talking specifics, but something fun that I wanted to do was I wanted to talk about, as I was playing this game, a lot of movies and a lot of games came to mind, even if it was only for a moment. And it's not that they were homaging them or ripping them off or anything like that, but they just came to mind for me. And more so, I'm just curious, if I was to say the things that came to my mind, if people in the comments who've played the game know what I'm talking about, if you're watching this on YouTube, that is, that they could jump into the comments and let me know if they know what I'm talking about for some of these moments. Vaguely though, one of those, like, if you know type things, right? You could kind of vaguely let me know in the comments if you get where I'm coming from, or if you're like, nah, I don't know what you're talking about with that one. So I'm going to list off the movies and games that came to my mind as I was playing this. Again, you might consider it spoilery if you're like, oh no, now you're putting ideas in my head of what to expect. So if you don't want any kind of ideas at all, or you just want to go in blind and you just think, oh, I've heard enough now, you really like the game and you recommend it, great. But I did think that this would be a fun thing to do. So here goes. Van Helsing, Vampire Knight, Dog Soldiers, Uncharted, The Lord of the Rings, BioShock, Silent Hill, 7, Toy Story, Devil May Cry, 300, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, Aliens, King Kong, Dead Space, Annabelle, Escape Room, Batman Arkham Asylum, and The Last of Us Part 2. So those are some of the games and movies that came to my mind as I was playing the game. Even if it was only for a moment, those are some of the things that came up for me. And obviously there's just callbacks to Resident Evil 2, right? Resident Evil 1 is in there. Resident Evil 7 is an obvious one. And Resident Evil 4 is the biggest one that obviously came to mind as playing the game. But I'd love to hear from other people. So if you've played this game, do get in touch. If you're watching this on YouTube, jump down into the comments. Let me know if you know what I mean by any of those things that I said, and also just what your thoughts on the game were in general. If you haven't played it yet, maybe avoid the comments. There might be some spoilers in there. People want to talk freely about this. But you can also get in touch on social media, guys, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Brothers Take, and let us know your thoughts on RE Village. We will eventually be getting into the meat and the spoilers when I've completed it. Eric has completed it a bunch of times. And so Adam just has to get around to playing it. And then we will be doing a spoiler cast on our podcast, which we release weekly. So that will happen. And that will go out on YouTube and also on all of our major audio platforms, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever else you like to listen to us. So depending on where you were listening to us today, if you're watching this on YouTube, please do give this video a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and click that notification bell. It really helps us out a lot. We would love to build a community around talking about games, and we'd love for people to show us some more support, and we can get more content like this out there. If you're listening to us on audio platforms, then like I said, you can touch base with us on our social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Brothers Take, again, to let us know your take on Resident Evil Village. You can also hear more from me on another podcast I do called The Plot Heads with my good friend Mr. Danny Cunningham. We release episodes every single week where we talk movies, TV shows, and pop culture on all your favorite audio platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, or wherever else you like to listen. So please do check out The Plot Heads. Would really, really appreciate the support. That's it for today, guys. We'll be talking to you guys next time. Bye-bye.